Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome back to English in Advance with Jessica. I am so glad you've decided to spend some time with me today. Before we dive in, I want you to join me in a memory I suspect we all share. Picture yourself standing in a group of people. They're all native English speakers, laughing and chatting. The conversation is flowing around you like a fast-moving river, and you are standing on the bank, wanting so desperately to jump in. The words are flying past. Fragments of jokes, quick questions, cultural references. You catch a word here, a phrase there, but you can't seem to find a way into the current. You smile, you nod, you try to match your expression to the energy of the group, but inside, a quiet, cold feeling of panic is starting to grow. You feel invisible. You feel like you are behind a wall of glass, able to see the connection happening, but completely unable to be a part of it. That feeling, that specific lonely feeling of being on the outside looking in, is what we are going to talk about today, because I know that feeling intimately. I've lived it, and I know the way out. For me, the moment that feeling became crystal clear happened many years ago. I was working in a small, cozy cafe to save money for my studies. It was a bustling Saturday morning, and the air was thick with the rich, comforting smell of freshly ground coffee beans and the sweet scent of warm pastries. The sounds were a familiar symphony, the rhythmic hiss and sigh of the espresso machine, the gentle clinking of ceramic cups, the low, happy hum of weekend conversations. I was in my element until a man walked in. He was a tourist, dressed for a day of exploring, with a kind face and an accent I couldn't immediately place. It was thick and melodic. He approached the counter and started speaking with an air of friendly urgency, gesturing with his hands. He smiled and the words began to flow. But for me, it was like the symphony of the cafe suddenly faded into a single confusing noise. I caught a few words. I think I heard bottle and still, and something that sounded like for the road. But the words in between were a blur, a stream of sounds that my brain just couldn't catch and assemble into meaning. I felt a wave of hot panic wash over me, a familiar but terrible sensation. My professional, friendly smile felt frozen and unnatural on my face. My mind was racing, trying to solve the puzzle. Bottle, still, road. Is he asking for a bottle of still water to take with him? That must be it. I asked him to repeat himself, my voice barely a whisper. I'm so sorry. Could you say that again? He did, a little slower, but his smile had faded, and a clear look of frustration had replaced it, a look that made my cheeks burn with a deep, private embarrassment. In a desperate attempt to be helpful and end the awkwardness, I relied on my guess. I turned, grabbed a plastic bottle of still water from the fridge, and handed it to him with a hopeful look. He just looked at the bottle, then at me, and shook his head with a deep sigh. He said something under his breath, a quick, sharp phrase I couldn't understand but whose meaning was perfectly clear in his disappointed tone. And he walked out of the cafe, the little bell on the door jingling his departure. I stood there, alone behind the counter, holding the cool, smooth plastic bottle in my hand. It felt incredibly heavy. I watched him disappear into the Saturday morning crowd, and in that moment I felt so small and so incredibly foolish. It wasn't just about the language barrier or a simple missed order. It felt like a fundamental failure to connect. I realized that all the vocabulary lists and grammar rules in the world were useless if I couldn't do this one simple thing: truly listen to another human being, understand their needs, and be understood in return. That moment was a turning point. It was the moment I decided I didn't just want to know English, I wanted to understand it. Today, we are going on a journey together, a journey that starts right in that feeling of frustration and leads to a place of confidence and genuine connection. We are going to transform you from a passive and sometimes panicked hearer of English into an active, confident, and skilled listener. This isn't about learning a few quick tips. It's about building deep, powerful habits that will fundamentally change your relationship with the English language. These habits will not only unlock your understanding, but will also, almost like magic, supercharge your speaking fluency, allowing you to finally jump into that river of conversation. So please get comfortable. Maybe grab that cup of tea or coffee, settle in, and let's begin this journey together. Let's explore the listening habits that will truly transform your English skills. The very first thing we need to talk about isn't really a habit. It's a mindset. It's the foundation upon which all the other habits are built. So many of us, as learners, approach listening with a mindset of fear. We have this belief that we must understand 100% of every single word. The moment we miss a word, a little alarm bell goes off in our head. It screams, "You missed one. You're failing." And what happens then? We stop listening to the rest of the sentence because we're so busy worrying about the one word we lost. And just like that, the entire message is gone. This mindset of perfectionism is the biggest enemy of good listening. The first step in our journey is to let go of that fear. We need to change our goal from, "I must understand every word," to, "I want to understand the main message." It's a small change in words, but it's a massive change in perspective. It gives you permission to not be perfect. It gives you permission to be human. Let me tell you a story about a young man named Alex. Alex was a brilliant software engineer from Brazil who had just gotten his dream job at a big international tech company. His English reading and writing skills were excellent, but he had always been nervous about his listening. In his first week, he was invited to a project meeting with team members from the United States, India, and the UK. He sat at the long, polished conference table, his heart pounding a nervous rhythm against his ribs. The meeting started, and his manager, a fast-talking woman from California, began explaining the project goals. Alex leaned forward, his brow furrowed in concentration, trying to catch every single word. She said something about, "We need to leverage our synergistic assets to optimize the third quarter deliverables," and Alex's mind went blank. Leverage? Synergistic? Deliverables? He had seen these words in articles, but hearing them spoken so quickly in a stream of corporate jargon was completely different. The panic alarm went off. While he was mentally scrambling to define those words, his manager had moved on, talking about timelines and dependencies. The conversation then shifted to his colleague from London, who spoke with a completely different rhythm and accent. Alex felt like he was drowning in an ocean of words. He just sat there for the rest of the hour, smiling and nodding when other people smiled and nodded, feeling like a complete imposter. He left that meeting feeling defeated, questioning if he was good enough for the job. That evening he talked to his mentor, a kind older engineer named David. Alex explained what had happened, how he had felt so lost and embarrassed. David listened patiently and then smiled. He said, "Alex, you're trying to count every drop of water in a river. You'll go crazy. Instead, just watch for the big fish. A conversation has maybe 3 or 4 big fish, the main ideas. The rest is just water flowing by. If you can spot the big fish, you understand the river. Don't worry about the drops of water." This idea of listening for the big fish changed everything for Alex. The next day, during a more informal coffee break with his team, he decided to try it. His colleagues were chatting about a new software update. Instead of trying to understand every technical term and every joke, Alex just listened for the main ideas. He heard one colleague say, "The main problem is the user interface. It's just not intuitive." That was a big fish. He heard another say, "But the performance speed is much, much better now." That was another big fish. He didn't understand every single word in between, but he understood the overall conversation. There were good things and bad things about the new update. He felt a small spark of confidence. He took a deep breath and said, "So, it sounds like the speed is good, but the design is the main problem." His colleague from London turned to him and smiled. "Exactly, Alex. You've hit the nail on the head." For the first time, Alex didn't feel like an imposter. He felt like part of the team. He had connected. Alex's story shows us the power of shifting our mindset. It's the foundation of our first and most important habit, active listening. Active listening is the difference between letting sound wash over you and consciously engaging with what is being said. Alex in the first meeting was hearing, but he wasn't listening. Alex at the coffee break was listening actively. He was listening for the big fish. This is a skill you can practice right now. The next time you listen to this podcast or any English audio, try this. Have a piece of paper and just write down what you think the 1 or 2 main ideas are. Not the details, not the fancy words, just the big fish. What is Jessica trying to tell me in this section? This simple practice trains your brain to stop panicking about small details and to focus on the core message. Another technique for active listening, which Alex started using, is to mentally paraphrase. As you listen, try to say what the speaker is saying in your own, simpler words inside your head. If a speaker says, "The current meteorological forecast predicts significant precipitation over the next 48 hours," you can think to yourself, "Okay, it's going to rain a lot for 2 days." This process of translation forces your brain to engage with the meaning, not just the words. It keeps you present and focused. It is the first giant step on the road to becoming a truly skilled listener. Once we've built this foundation of active listening, this new mindset of looking for the main message, we can move on to the next crucial habit. This habit is all about expanding your world. It's the habit of listening to a wide variety of English. So many of us get stuck in a comfortable routine. We only listen to the slow, clear English from our textbooks or maybe one specific podcast host that we find easy to understand. While that's a good start, it's like only ever exercising one muscle in your body. To become truly strong, you need a full workout. Real-world English is not one single thing. It's a beautiful, messy, and diverse collection of accents, speeds, slang words, and styles. The English spoken in Dublin is vastly different from the English spoken in Dallas or Delhi. By only listening to one type of English, you're preparing for a world that doesn't really exist. Let me share another story with you, this time about a student named Maria from Spain. Maria was a dedicated student. She had studied English for years and always got top grades in her classes. She was preparing for a master's degree program at a university in Manchester, in the UK. All of her learning materials, her teachers, and the shows she watched were American. She felt confident. She thought, I know English. A few months before she was due to move, she decided to watch a popular British TV show that her future classmates were talking about online. It was a comedy series set in Manchester. She sat down, excited, ready to enjoy the show. 5 minutes in, her smile had faded. 10 minutes in, she was completely bewildered. The characters spoke so quickly, their accents were so thick, and they used so many slang words she had never heard before. They would say things like, "I'm absolutely chuffed," or "That's brilliant." And she had no idea if that was good or bad. She felt that same sinking feeling Alex felt in his meeting. All her years of study felt useless. Her confidence was shattered. Maria was tempted to give up, to just go back to her comfortable American sitcoms. But she was also determined. She knew she had to face this challenge. So she created a plan she called her Listening World Tour. She decided that for the next 3 months, she would expose herself to as many different kinds of English as possible. On Mondays, she would watch that British comedy show, but this time with English subtitles on. She would pause the show every time she heard a new slang word, like chuffed, which she discovered means very happy, and write it down in a special notebook she called her accent journal. An entry might read, "Chuffed to bits, British slang, means very happy or pleased." Example, he was chuffed to bits with his new bike. Sounds much more enthusiastic than just happy. On Tuesdays, she would listen to an Australian news podcast on her way to university. The accent was different again, more relaxed, with different vowel sounds. It was difficult at first, but she kept at it. Wednesdays were for a Canadian history podcast. Thursdays, she would watch interviews with famous Irish actors. Fridays were for South African nature documentaries. She was systematic. For the first week with a new accent, she would use subtitles. For the second week, she would listen without them, just to see how much she could get. It was hard. There were many days she felt frustrated, but slowly, something amazing began to happen. Her ear started to change. It became more flexible, more adaptable. The British comedy show that was once impossible to understand started to become funny. She started to actually get the jokes. The different accents were no longer scary walls of sound. They were just different flavors of the same language. The real test came a month before her trip. She had a video call with the university administrator from Scotland to finalize her registration. The administrator had a strong Scottish accent, one that would have terrified Maria just a few months earlier. As he spoke, Maria took a deep breath and focused on the big fish. She didn't catch every single word, but she caught the important ones: tuition fees, deadline, student visa, welcome week. She was able to ask intelligent questions and have a successful, productive conversation. When the call ended, Maria didn't just feel relieved. She felt powerful. She had faced her fear and had won. She was no longer just a student of American English. She was becoming a true global listener. Maria's story teaches us a vital lesson. We can't wait for the world to speak the English we're comfortable with. We have to train our ears to understand the English the world actually speaks. Your task, your mission, is to create your own listening world tour. You don't have to be as intense as Maria, but you can start small. This week, find one podcast, one YouTube channel, or one TV show with an accent you are not familiar with. Maybe it's from Ireland or New Zealand or Jamaica. Just listen for 10 minutes a day. Don't worry about understanding everything. The goal is not instant comprehension. The goal is exposure. You are simply teaching your brain not to be surprised, not to panic when it hears something new. You are building up a mental database of sounds and rhythms. This habit, practiced consistently over time, will make you a more flexible and confident listener than you ever thought possible. It will open up the entire English-speaking world to you, not just one small corner of it. So now we have two powerful habits in our toolkit. We've learned to listen actively for the main message, and we're training our ears to understand a variety of Englishes. Now we need to go even deeper. We need to start listening not just to what people are saying, but how they are saying it. This brings us to our third habit, focusing on the music of English. I'm talking about pronunciation, sentence stress, intonation, and rhythm. These aren't just decorative features of a language, they are a core part of its meaning. The melody of a sentence can tell you if it's a question or a statement, if the speaker is excited or bored, if they are being sincere or sarcastic. If you only listen for the words, you are missing half the conversation. Let me tell you about Kenji, a talented project manager from Japan. Kenji was excellent at his job. He was organized, smart, and his technical English was perfect. He could write long, detailed reports with flawless grammar. However, when it came to real-time conversations with his clients in North America, he always felt one step behind. They spoke so fast and their words seemed to blend together into one continuous stream of sound. He also knew that when he spoke, his English sounded a bit flat. It didn't have the natural rhythm he heard from his colleagues. He was giving a presentation to a group of important clients. He had practiced his script for weeks. He delivered the information perfectly. But after his presentation during the question and answer session, everything fell apart. A client asked him a question, something like, "So what's the projected ROI on that?" The words, projected ROI, just blurred together for Kenji. It sounded like projecti droy. He had to ask the client to repeat the question 3 times, which was embarrassing for him and frustrating for the client. He knew the individual words, projected and ROI, return on investment, but he had never heard them spoken together so quickly and naturally. Kenji realized that knowing the dictionary pronunciation of a word wasn't enough. He needed to understand how words connect and change in the river of natural speech. A friend recommended a technique to him called shadowing. The idea is simple. You listen to a native speaker and you try to speak at the exact same time as them, like a shadow. You don't listen and then repeat. You listen and speak simultaneously. Kenji was skeptical, but he decided to try it. He found a TED Talk by a speaker he admired. The first time he tried, it was a disaster. He felt ridiculous and he was constantly stumbling over the words, always a second or two behind the speaker. It felt impossible, but he didn't give up. He chose just one 30-second segment of the speech and practiced it every day on his commute to work. He started to notice things he had never noticed before. He noticed how the speaker didn't say, "What is the next step?" She said, "What's the next step?" linking the words together. This phenomenon, he later learned, was called connected speech. He noticed how her voice went up at the end of a question and down at the end of a statement. He noticed she put stress on the most important words in a sentence to highlight her meaning. For example, she didn't just say, "We need to focus on quality." She said, "We need to focus on quality." He wasn't just learning words, he was learning the music. He continued this practice for a few minutes every single day. He shadowed news reporters, podcast hosts, and actors in movies. His own speaking started to change. It became smoother, more rhythmic. But the most surprising change was in his listening. The fast, blurry speech of his clients started to come into focus. He could now hear the connections between words, the reductions, the stress patterns. It was like his brain had finally learned the secret code of spoken English. A few months later, Kenji had another presentation with the same group of clients. This time, when the Q&A session started, he felt calm. A client asked a long, complex question. Given the potential supply chain disruptions, have you factored in a contingency plan? Previously, that sentence would have overwhelmed him, but now his ear, trained by shadowing, picked up the key stressed words. Given potential supply chain disruptions. Have you factored contingency plan? He instantly understood the core of the question. He was able to answer confidently and clearly. The clients were impressed. Kenji felt a huge sense of accomplishment. He had finally cracked the code, not by studying more vocabulary, but by listening to the music. Kenji's story shows us that shadowing is one of the most powerful exercises you can do. It builds a direct bridge between listening and speaking. It trains your mouth to make the sounds and your ear to hear them. Here's how you can start. Find a short audio clip, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, with a speaker you like who speaks clearly. Make sure you have a transcript. First, just listen to the clip and read the transcript at the same time to get familiar with it. Then play the audio again and try to speak along with the speaker. Don't worry if you fall behind or make mistakes. Just try to copy the rhythm, the intonation, the music. Do this with the same short clip every day for a week. You will be absolutely amazed at how much your pronunciation improves, and more importantly, how much more you can understand when you listen to other native speakers. You are training your brain to recognize the patterns of natural, connected speech. Now, we've covered the foundational habits: listening for the main message, listening to variety, and listening to the music of the language. If you master these, you will be an excellent listener. But if you want to become a truly exceptional listener, a truly fluent and emotionally intelligent communicator, there is another layer we need to explore. This is the next level. This is where we learn to listen for what is not said. I'm talking about the habit of listening for subtext and emotion. The words people say are often just the tip of the iceberg. Underneath the surface, there is a whole world of feelings, intentions, and hidden meanings. Learning to hear this subtext is a superpower. It allows you to navigate complex social and professional situations with grace and understanding. Let me tell you a story about a woman named Chloe, a graphic designer from France working at an advertising agency in Canada. Chloe was technically brilliant. Her designs were beautiful, and she always delivered her work on time. She had a performance review with her manager, Mark. She went into the meeting feeling confident. Mark started the review by saying, "Chloe, thanks for your hard work on the new beverage campaign. Your design work was, as always, very polished and you met all the deadlines." Chloe smiled, feeling pleased. He continued, "The client thought the concept was interesting. They appreciated the effort. We're going to go in a slightly different direction for the final version, but we can reuse some of your assets. So, yeah, overall, a solid effort." Chloe heard the words, hard work, polished, appreciated the effort, solid effort. She thought, great. The review went well. She left the meeting and told her colleague that everything was fine. But a week later, a huge new project was announced, and Chloe was not chosen to be the lead designer. She was confused and hurt. She went back to Mark and asked him why. Mark sighed. He said, "Chloe, during your review, I was trying to tell you that the client was not happy. Your design was technically perfect, but it didn't match their brand's playful identity. It was too serious. When I said the concept was interesting and a solid effort, I was trying to be gentle, but I was also communicating that it missed the mark. I had hoped you would ask some follow-up questions about what the client was looking for, or what a different direction meant. When you just smiled and said thank you, I thought you didn't see the need for improvement." Chloe was devastated. It was a terrible misunderstanding. She had listened to Mark's words, but she had completely missed the emotion and the subtext. His slow pace, his hesitation before the word interesting, his use of weak praise like solid effort instead of strong praise like fantastic or brilliant. These were all clues. They were part of the message, but Chloe's ears were only tuned to the dictionary definitions of the words. She realized that to succeed in her job, she needed to learn to listen with her heart as well as her head. So Chloe began a new kind of listening practice. When she watched movies, she would close her eyes during a dialogue scene and just listen to the actors' voices. Could she tell if they were happy, sad, angry, or nervous, just from their tone and pace? When she was in meetings, she started paying attention to how people said things. Did her colleagues say, "That's a great idea," with energy and excitement, or with a flat, tired voice? She started to notice the small but important details. She learned that a pause could mean uncertainty. A quick pace could mean excitement or anxiety. A low, slow voice could mean disappointment. She also learned to ask clarifying questions based on this new information. A few months later, she presented a new design to Mark. He looked at it and said, "This is quite bold, Chloe. It's unexpected." The old Chloe would have heard bold and unexpected and panicked. But the new Chloe heard the music behind his words. She heard the curiosity in his voice, not criticism. And she heard a slight hesitation. So she didn't just say, "Thank you." She asked, "When you say unexpected, what comes to mind? Are you concerned it's too different from our previous work?" This question opened up a fantastic conversation. Mark explained his concerns, Chloe explained her creative choices, and together they refined the design. It ended up being a huge success. Chloe had learned to listen to the whole message, the spoken and the unspoken. This new skill didn't just make her a better designer, it made her a more empathetic and effective colleague. Chloe's story reveals how important this deeper level of listening is. How can you practice this? Start by paying attention to the people around you, even in your own language. Notice the emotional content of conversations. Then apply this to your English practice. When you listen to a podcast interview, ask yourself, how does the guest feel about this topic? Are they passionate, worried, skeptical? What clues in their voice tell you this? This habit of listening for emotion will make your interactions in English richer, more meaningful, and far more successful. And this idea of deeper meaning brings us to another complex but essential habit for anyone working or living in an international environment. This is the habit of listening with cultural awareness. The way people communicate is deeply influenced by their culture. What is considered polite in one culture might be considered rude in another. What is clear in one culture might be confusingly indirect in another. If we listen to everyone as if they communicate exactly like we do, misunderstandings are inevitable. We have to learn to adjust our listening filters based on who we are talking to. Let's talk about Lars, an engineer from Denmark who moved to Malaysia to manage a large construction project. In Danish culture, communication is often very direct, straightforward, and efficient. If you disagree with something, you say so clearly and directly. Lars was used to this. In his first project meeting with his new Malaysian team, he presented his plan and asked for feedback. One of the senior local engineers, Mr. Chen, said, "This is a very ambitious plan, Mr. Lars. It is an interesting perspective. We will need to study it carefully and perhaps explore some alternative options for the timeline." Lars heard this and thought, "Great. They think the plan is interesting and ambitious. They just need some time to study it." He took Mr. Chen's words at face value. A week later, he was surprised to find that no progress had been made on his plan. He went to Mr. Chen and asked why. Mr. Chen seemed uncomfortable. He explained in a very polite and indirect way that when he said the plan was ambitious and they needed to explore alternative options, what he really meant was, this plan is impossible. The timeline is unrealistic, and it will not work in our local context. In many Asian cultures, it can be considered impolite to disagree with a superior so directly. Harmony in the group is often valued more than direct confrontation. So criticism is often softened with polite, indirect language. Mr. Chen was being respectful. But Lars, listening with his Danish cultural filter, completely missed the true message. The project was delayed by weeks because of this simple, cross-cultural listening error. Lars realized he couldn't just translate the English words. He had to translate the cultural context behind them. He started learning. He read about Malaysian business culture. He had lunch with his team members and asked them questions. He learned that in their culture, a hesitant yes might actually mean maybe, and a suggestion to think about it could be a polite way of saying no. He learned that building a personal relationship with the team was just as important as discussing the project plan. He had to learn to listen for what was between the words. He started paying attention to nonverbal cues and the group dynamic. In the next big meeting, Lars presented a revised plan. Before asking for feedback, he said, "I know I am new to working here, and my style is very direct. I would be very grateful for your honest opinions. Please help me understand any challenges you see, even small ones." This invitation made the team feel more comfortable. When he asked for feedback this time, he listened differently. When an engineer said, "This part might be a little challenging," Lars didn't just move on. He stopped and said, "Thank you for pointing that out. Can you please tell me more about that challenge? What makes it difficult?" This showed respect and encouraged the engineer to explain the real problem. The meeting was a huge success. They identified several problems and solved them together. Lars was still direct, but he had learned to listen with a new, culturally aware filter. This skill made him not just a better manager, but a respected leader. Lars's story is a powerful reminder that English is a global language, and it's not owned by any one culture. To be a master listener, you must be a bit of an anthropologist. You must be curious, respectful, and willing to learn. When you interact with someone from a different background, listen with an open mind. Pay attention to their communication style. Is it direct or indirect? Formal or informal? Don't assume your way is the normal way. This habit of listening with cultural awareness will save you from countless misunderstandings and will help you build stronger, more authentic relationships with people from all over the world. We have journeyed so far together. We've talked about the foundations of active listening, the importance of variety, the music of the language, and the deeper skills of hearing subtext and culture. All of these stories show individuals on a path of discovery. But what happens after you've been on the path for a while? What does it look like when all these habits are not just things you practice, but are a part of who you are as a communicator? I want to invite you now into a new part of our journey. We are going to spend a whole day with our friend Alex. It's been a couple of years since his first disastrous meeting, and he is now a senior engineer and a mentor himself. By following him from his morning commute to his evening relaxation, we can see how a skilled listener navigates the real world. And we can discover even more strategies for the most challenging listening situations we all face. 7:30 a.m. The commute and the deliberate practice. Alex is on a crowded train, the rhythmic clatter of the wheels a familiar sound. He has his headphones on, but he isn't just passively listening to a podcast to pass the time. He is engaged in what is known as deliberate practice. He's listening to a notoriously difficult tech news show called Quantum Leap. The three hosts are brilliant, but they speak incredibly fast, use complex technical jargon, and often talk over one another. The old Alex would have given up after 30 seconds. The new Alex sees it as a workout for his listening muscles. He's not trying to understand everything perfectly. Instead, he has a specific goal for today: to identify and understand the discourse markers the hosts use to structure their arguments. These are the small phrases that signpost the direction of a conversation, like, on the one hand, that being said. In other words, or to put it bluntly, he has a small notebook, and when he hears one, he jots it down. One host says, "The new chip has incredible processing power. On the other hand, its energy consumption is a major concern." Alex's brain lights up. He understands that on the other hand is a signal for a contrasting idea. The host isn't just listing facts, she's presenting two sides of an argument. A few minutes later, another host interrupts. "Okay, to put it bluntly, the chip is a furnace. It's powerful but impractical for mobile devices." Alex smiles. He recognizes "to put it bluntly" as a signal for a direct, honest, and perhaps slightly harsh opinion. For 20 minutes, he isn't just listening to the news. He is analyzing the architecture of the conversation. He is learning how native speakers debate and persuade. When he gets off the train, he doesn't just know more about a new computer chip. He has a deeper understanding of how to follow a complex argument, a skill that will be invaluable in his upcoming meetings. 9 a.m. The team huddle and active reinforcement. Alex is with his team for their daily stand-up meeting. It's fast-paced. Each person gives a quick update. This is where Alex uses listening for specific information. He doesn't need to analyze every detail of the marketing team's update. But when his close colleague Sarah is speaking, he tunes in very carefully. She says, "And I'm a bit blocked on the API integration." Alex makes a mental note of that. He has identified a specific piece of information that is relevant to him. But he does something else, too. His colleague from India, Priya, mentions a new software bug. She uses an idiom Alex has never heard before. She says, "We thought we had fixed it, but this bug is a whole new can of worms." Alex doesn't panic. He uses context. Priya's tone is frustrated, and he's talking about a problem that is more complicated than they first thought. Alex infers that a can of worms is a situation that, once you start investigating it, reveals many more unexpected problems. Later, he discreetly looks it up on his phone to confirm. He adds it to his personal language collection. He even thinks about his friend Maria and her accent journal and smiles. The learning never stops. After the meeting, he goes to Sarah and says, "I heard you were blocked on the API. I worked on that last year. Maybe I can help." He was able to be a proactive and helpful teammate because he was listening with a clear purpose. 11 a.m., a difficult conversation and empathetic listening. Alex has a one-on-one video call with a junior developer on his team, a young man named Tom, who's been missing deadlines. This is where he uses his most advanced skills, listening for emotion and subtext. Tom says, his eyes avoiding the camera, "Yes, everything is fine. I'm just a bit busy. I'll catch up." But Alex hears the music behind the words. He hears Tom's flat tone of voice, his tired-sounding speech, the slight crackle of stress. The old Alex would have said, "Okay, just try to be faster." But the new Alex, the mentor, pauses. He lets the silence sit for a moment, a technique he learned that encourages people to say more. Then he says gently, "You say you're busy, but you sound really tired. Is everything really okay?" This empathetic question, this act of listening to the feeling and not just the words, opens the door. Tom's shoulders slump. He takes a deep breath and admits he is struggling with personal issues at home and is feeling completely overwhelmed. He's been too embarrassed to say anything. Alex doesn't offer solutions. Instead, he practices another key active listening skill, summarizing and reflecting. He says, "So what I'm hearing is that you're dealing with a lot outside of work, and it's making it almost impossible to focus here. That sounds incredibly difficult." Tom nods, his eyes now filled with relief. "Yes, that's it exactly." By summarizing, Alex shows Tom that he has been heard and understood without judgment. Alex doesn't solve the problem, but by listening to the unspoken message, he is able to offer support, connect his colleague with the right company resources, and adjust some deadlines. He has turned a simple status update into a moment of human connection and trust. 1 p.m., the working lunch and generative listening. Alex is having lunch with a diverse group of colleagues from different departments, marketing, design, and finance. The conversation is about a new project idea. This isn't a meeting with a formal agenda, it's a creative brainstorming session. Here, Alex practices what is sometimes called generative listening. He's not just listening to understand or to find problems, he's listening to build. The designer, Chloe, the same Chloe from our earlier story, now a senior designer, says, "I have this visual idea of a flowing river of data." The finance expert says, "But how do we quantify the ROI on a flowing river? It sounds expensive." Instead of taking sides, Alex listens to both ideas. He finds the connection. He says, "I love the flowing river idea, Chloe. It sounds beautiful." And to address the finance question, what if each drop of water in the river represents a measurable data point? We could visualize the ROI as the river gets wider and faster. We're not just showing data, we're showing growth. This act of listening to two different perspectives and combining them into a new, better idea is the essence of generative listening. It's about listening for possibilities. The conversation becomes energized, and a truly innovative concept starts to form, all because Alex wasn't just hearing opinions, he was listening for connections. 3 p.m., a noisy conference call and focused attention. Alex is on a call with the client who is working from a noisy cafe. The connection is bad, and there's a lot of background noise. This is a real-world test of his listening stamina and his ability to focus. He uses every trick he knows. He uses high-quality headphones to block out the noise in his own open-plan office. He closes his eyes for a moment to eliminate visual distractions and channel all his mental energy to his ears. He focuses intently on the client's voice, trying to separate it from the sounds of coffee machines and other people talking. He mentally paraphrases everything the client says to confirm his understanding. When he's not sure he heard something, he isn't afraid to say, "I'm sorry, the connection is a bit bad. I want to make sure I get this right. Did you say we need to focus on the desktop version or the dashboard version?" By being an active and patient listener, and by taking responsibility for his own understanding, he manages to get all the necessary information despite the difficult conditions. He ends the call with the client feeling confident and heard. 5:30 p.m., the end of the day and mentorship. As he's packing up, Tom, the junior developer from the morning's call, stops by his desk. Tom looks relieved and says, "Hey, Alex, I just wanted to say thank you for, listening." Alex smiles warmly. "Of course, we're a team." He then adds, "A few years ago, I was the one who was terrified of listening in meetings. I had a great mentor who helped me. The most important thing he told me was to stop trying to understand every word and just listen for the big ideas." In this small moment, Alex passes on the wisdom he received from David. He is completing the cycle of mentorship, reinforcing his own learning by teaching it to someone else. 7 p.m., the family call and code switching. Alex is at home, making dinner. He's on a video call with his mother in Brazil. They are speaking in Portuguese, his native language. His mother asks him about his big project. As Alex explains the complex technical ideas, he finds himself using English terms like API integration and user interface because there are no direct, simple translations. Then he has to immediately switch back to Portuguese to explain what those terms mean in a simple way his mother can understand. This constant code switching and translation is an incredibly demanding mental exercise. It forces him to have a deep, flexible understanding of concepts in both languages. It's a different kind of listening practice, one that strengthens the neural pathways between his two linguistic worlds. 8:30 p.m., the bedtime story and patient listening. Alex's 6-year-old daughter, Maya, who is a native English speaker, asks him to read her a bedtime story. As he reads, Maya interrupts him with questions. Her grammar isn't perfect. She might say, "But why the monster goed there?" The old Alex might have immediately corrected her. "No, Maya, it's went." But the new Alex, the skilled listener, understands that in this moment, connection is more important than correction. He listens to the question behind the grammar. She wants to understand the monster's motivation. So he answers her question first. That's a great question. I think the monster went there because he was looking for a friend. Then gently, he can model the correct language. He went to the castle to find a friend. By listening with patience and prioritizing meaning over mistakes, he encourages her curiosity and builds her confidence, all while strengthening their bond. 9:30 p.m., the end of the day, and listening for pleasure. Finally, Alex is relaxing on the sofa with his wife. They are watching a critically acclaimed British historical drama. The dialogue is complex, full of subtle jokes, historical references, and sophisticated vocabulary. The accents are thick. This is not easy listening. But at this point in the day, Alex is not practicing. He is simply enjoying. He is able to appreciate the clever wordplay, understand the unspoken tension between the characters, and feel the emotional weight of the story. His listening skills, honed through years of deliberate practice, now allow him to access this rich world of culture and art without stress. His English listening is no longer a task to be completed or a test to be passed. It is a source of joy, entertainment, and connection. This day in the life shows that listening isn't one skill. It's a toolkit of different skills that we use in different situations. Alex's journey from that first scary meeting to this point of confidence was not a straight line. He had moments of frustration. He hit plateaus where he felt he wasn't improving, but he kept practicing deliberately, focusing on his weaknesses, and slowly, day by day, he transformed his ability. And that brings us full circle, back to the ultimate goal, connection and fluency. Every habit we've discussed today, from the foundational mindset to the advanced skill of cultural listening, serves one purpose: to allow you to connect more deeply with the world and to express yourself more confidently within it. The bridge from listening to speaking is built brick by brick with every moment of active listening you practice. When you become a language collector, as we discussed, you are gathering the materials to build your own confident voice. When you practice shadowing, you are not just mimicking sounds. You are teaching your body what fluent English feels like. So as we come to the end of our very long journey today, I want you to remember this. Becoming a great listener is not a race. It is a slow, steady, and beautiful process. It's a journey of patience and curiosity. The goal is not perfection. The goal is connection. I want you to take the stories of Alex, Maria, Kenji, Chloe, and Lars with you. Remember Alex when you feel overwhelmed in a meeting, and just listen for the big fish. Remember Maria when you hear a new accent that scares you, and see it as an invitation to start your own listening world tour. Remember Kenji when you struggle with the speed of native speakers, and try shadowing to learn the music of the language. Remember Chloe when a conversation feels off, and listen for the emotion behind the words. And remember Lars when you're speaking with someone from a different background, and listen with cultural curiosity and respect. To recap our key habits, first we must adopt the right mindset, letting go of the fear of not understanding every word. Second, we must practice active listening, focusing on the main message. Third, we need to listen to a wide variety of English to train our ears. Fourth, we must pay attention to the music of the language, the pronunciation, stress, and intonation. Fifth, we must learn to listen for the invisible messages, the subtext, emotion, and cultural context. And finally, We must actively build the bridge from listening to speaking by collecting language and practicing using it. Each of these habits supports the others, creating a powerful cycle of improvement. Better listening gives you more confidence. More confidence encourages you to speak more. Speaking more gives you more practice and exposure, and that exposure makes you an even better listener. It's a beautiful upward spiral. Start small. Choose just one of these stories that resonated with you and focus on that one habit this week. The key is to start, to be consistent, and to be kind to yourself along the way. You have the ability to completely transform your English skills. The journey starts with your ears. Thank you so much for joining me today on English in Advance with Jessica. I truly hope you found these detailed stories and habits helpful and that you feel inspired to begin your own listening transformation. Your journey to English fluency is a marathon, not a sprint, and I am here to cheer you on every step of the way. Now, before you go, please make sure to turn on your notifications for this channel. That way, you won't miss out on any of our future lessons designed to help you take your English to the next level and achieve your goals. Keep up the amazing work, keep listening, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Take care.